Everyone, welcome to my vlog. So today I'm extremely excited because my guest is one of my favorite headshot photographers. She is not only amazing person, but she also do stunning work. I've been following your images for a long time, and I've been inspired by them. You have really unique style, and welcome for this interview. We've been
Thank
waiting for
you.
this for quite a bit, and I'm
Thank
happy
you.
we finally reached a moment where you have some free time and you can talk to me. And I was preparing for this interview for quite a bit, and by just looking at your work, I have to say that I have a million questions. I hope we can answer all of them.
Okay.
But
I'll do my best.
absolutely. So my first question, I just want to start maybe from the beginning. How did you get into the headshot photography? And like how your career kind of started, and like you are one of the best photographers right now, so the journey probably was really interesting, but I just want to hear your story. I
Sure.
tried to find some information online, but there's not much. It's just basically a lot of impressive stuff, people you work with, your amazing portfolio, but I couldn't find anything to give me a little more details on, how did you get into this whole thing?
I will try and give you that information then. I learned photography when I was living in New York.
Okay.
I lived in Manhattan, was based out of there somewhere around 6 or 7 years, right out of college. And that was when it was a big transition of film to digital, and
Okay.
there was a lot of prints. And everyone had kind of made the jump from black and white to color. It was like a big change and shift going on in the industry when I was learning. So I did shoot some film and learn digital as well. And really just started by shooting my broke actor and model friends
Okay.
up in my rooftop on 48th Street. And it kind of evolved from there. I still I wasn't like, I'm going to be a photographer now. I just really enjoyed shooting and directing and that kind of stuff. So shot a ton of people. And, over the years, agents started to ask who took this and what does she charge and all of that stuff. So I definitely went for a while just playing and exploring and finding my voice before I even approached it as a business, which we know it is. And then, I had a few opportunities and a few friends that lived out in Los Angeles, and eventually came out in the freezing cold month of January from New York, and thought, well, this isn't so bad.
Well, welcome. You can come into Calgary and have that taste again.
Yeah. So I've been based out of Los Angeles for 11 years now. So
Okay.
LA is my home for sure. And LA, the style of shooting, I think really spoke to me, and LA has been very good to me, and things happen rather quickly here, which was lucky for me. Started the same way you almost have to reestablish yourself when you're starting in a new market, and started like everyone else, and shooting out on the street and shooting in tiny little spaces and little garages and all that stuff. And then eventually, got my studio and continued to build it from there. And now I've had 3 amazing spaces.
Wow.
And now we reside in North Hollywood in Los
Nice.
Angeles. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your style, because this is something which I'm sure, is very noticeable, and it's really unique. It's really different. I have to also say that whenever I look at your images, has that Hollywood taste to it, which, if someone would show me stuff from New York and then, your stuff, I can definitely pick up your images right away, and then you have that really amazing style. So what I would like to talk about, and the information what I would like to kind of get from you, can you tell me a little bit more about the process of, how did you get to establish that style? Because I know this is one of the biggest challenges for photographers nowadays. Like, when you get this technical stuff kind of under the belt and you understand the lighting, then you try to find something which is yours, is unique, and it's something which, belongs to you. So if you could just walk me through the process you went through to establish your style.
Sure. Everyone's journey is different in how they find
Absolutely.
theirs. Mine in particular, lighting on the subject was the most important to me always. And I think women in general are very conscious of lighting on themselves. So it was constantly, first off, what does my subject look like in this lighting? Background, everything else that came with it was secondary. And you play around a lot in the beginning of, you look at different styles that, other photographers are shooting and, oh, that's interesting what they're doing there. And that's interesting. But I think, when you're really trying to develop your style, you can't copy someone else, and you can't try and do a version of what they do. And you can't try and, mimic it has to come from whatever inspires you. And I think, finding your own voice and doing something that's different. I mean, everything's been done before,
Yes,
we're all recycling stuff bit by bit, but, it's different elements when they come together are your style, and they do reflect you and your own personal style as well, and your view on things and your view on your subject. So for me, I shot for a long time with natural light. I still do. I definitely mix in more artificial light as well, and we'll probably get to that a little bit too. But figuring out the balance of your subject looking like themselves, but the best version of themselves. The kind of glow factor that I think I incorporate that a lot of people talk about, where for me, you can study color, you can study what colors people like, what they're drawn to, all of that. But I think when you're talking about personal style as a photographer, science has to be removed from it, and statistics and studies have to be removed. It's the feeling. And for me, I'm attracted to very warm tones, and I'm in a really specialized market here where I'm shooting actors and models and celebrities, and there has to be a warmth to them. And I think regardless of the market I would be in, no matter what city it is, that's just my personal view and style is warmth. I think skin tone accuracy is a big one for me. I get quite frustrated if I see a photo that isn't accurate as far as someone's skin tone. Everyone's born with these beautiful pigments in different colors and different tones. And I think as photographers, it's our job to be able to photograph anything that is in front of us. And whether that's fixing something in post or really messing with something in camera and with your lights to get it right. Lighting is just everything for me. Whether it's on the subject or behind to create an effect, to remove them, to cut them out, to, being in Hollywood and that Hollywood look you're talking about. I do pay attention a lot with film and TV to lighting. And, you hear the term cinematic lighting, and cinematographers here would probably roll their eyes at photographers talking like that. But
they try to kind of jump on the wagon a little bit, right?
I think the idea of it is right. And I think that, having that movie feel, or that, you see beautiful depth of field in certain scenes, and I love it myself. But it's also finding the balance of that as well. So my style and my influence of my style, certainly, I think it kicked into gear once I had been in LA for a few years. And you're getting inspired by the city you're in and the textures and the colors around it and the tone of things. And you're just developing it as the year. I mean, I'm still developing it. If I get stuck in a certain style for too long, I start to get restless with it. Even though clients will come and say, I want that look, and they'll point to a photo on your website and you give it to them. But, I'm constantly looking at ways to make it even better or make it even more interesting or switch things up. But I think the style that people refer to with my work as kind of the glowy Hollywood dewy backlight.
Perfect.
Eyes popping.
So let's dig a little bit more into this. And speaking of inspiration, so who inspires you? Like, are you getting more inspiration from other people's work or other photographers, or are you getting inspiration from the city where you live in? Like, what inspires you, and what kind of stuff you kind of try to look for to incorporate into your work?
Yeah, I mean, I think inspiration for me is constant. Mm-hmm. I don't seek out other photographers and look at what they're doing, and that I really don't. I like to stay current on what the LA market is doing specifically, because we all, there's a small circle of us here that have been doing it for a while, that, we've seen each other's clients. We work with some of the same agents, and, I have the utmost respect for them, and we all have different styles. So if an actor's coming to me, they're coming to me for my style. If they're going to a colleague of mine down the street, they're coming to them for their style. So, there's a circle of us here. And I think, we all have our different looks. I'm not so much inspired by what other photographers are doing in headshots, at least. I love looking at what's in Vanity Fair, what's in Hollywood Reporter, what a lot of the editorial celebrity portrait photographers do, which we shoot a little bit of that too. So I love being inspired by that, because that's almost, the next level of headshot. It's more portrait based. It's it's less of a box, because we have to stay in a bit of the headshot box for the people we're shooting for. But I can be inspired by a texture I see at Home Depot. Yes, it's constant for me. It's like color tones and vibes and lots of shadows that I see in Vogue or something like that. All aspects of photography with film, TV, fashion, and editorial.
Yeah, that's a really great idea, because I've noticed that a lot of photographers, including myself, I like to look at other people's work.
Sure.
And get inspired. Yeah. But, what you do, I think you just took this to completely another level, where you're looking what is trendy, what there's really, really high-end producers they're doing, and what kind of stuff they're creating to kind of get inspired by them. So I'm gonna steal that from you for sure.
Take it, it's yours.
Perfect, thank you. So the next question I have, I just want to talk a little bit about kind of the perfect recipe and the kind of ingredients of the good headshots. We know it's a lighting, it's a posing, it's a face expression, but also there's stuff like makeup, which a lot of photographers forget about. And also what I've noticed in your work, which is really cool, and what I really like, and we talk a little bit about it, about the matching the skin tones and then clothing, and make this whole image just properly balanced. So could we talk a little bit about it, like how you actually just, what the process look like in your case when you're actually just preparing for photo shoot and you're working with actors and then models and all those people? Yeah.
I right off the bat, before I even meet my clients, I send them a little email that kind of goes over some tips as far as wardrobe is concerned. Okay. It's funny, I constantly say to my actors, there's no one way. There's no rules in headshots. There's no set way. It's art. It's all subjective. So anything I do, anything I say is my opinion, having done this for as long as I have. But, it could be a scenario where, this cut or this shirt isn't right for that person, but then someone else could walk in and it's magical on them.
Yes.
So it really, I will very rarely use like, no, you can't do this, because I do think it really depends on the person and the context and what you're shooting it for. Typically, I send actors, a helpful list of what to bring. I always tell people you can't bring too much. I'd rather have rolling suitcases in here that we have to go through together than have no options, because, our cameras are cameras. They're not magic wands.
Yes.
So, that's a little bit of the process. And then I have them either send me their old headshot or their IMDb link or their LA casting, any of their acting profiles that I can look and see what they've been working with, how they're putting themselves out there. I even will look at their Instagram maybe to just, Instagram is one of those things we all want to be seen a certain way. And you can tell a lot about someone's personal Instagram by what they're putting up there of themselves, which angles they're shooting themselves in, how much makeup they're wearing. I tell my makeup artist to look at it too, because someone will say, oh, I want really natural makeup. And then their version of natural is very different than our version.
Yes. So
it's really like doing your research before your client even comes in. And then once they're there, we talk about their goals, whether it's, I shoot a lot of actors, but if someone is not in that market and they're shooting corporate people or whatever it is, talk to your client, make sure they know they have a voice, asking, whether they have representation, what their representation wants out of it. Do they want commercial headshots and do they want theatrical headshots? Those are very different things in Los Angeles. And that was a big shift when I moved from New York to here, to kind of comprehend and understand that they are not the same thing. And you can't shoot someone on the same backdrop with two different wardrobe pieces and smile and not smile and consider that to be commercial and theatrical. They're very, very different things. So that's part of my process. We also have agents, managers, PR people, anybody that works with the actor who also has a voice. Yeah. So, sometimes we're playing director, creative director, therapist, you name it. But that's just before they even step in front of the camera. Makeup is a huge factor. I don't require it, but I recommend it because I do know a lot of actors are on a budget and they're starting out, or they just have had a bad experience with makeup, which leads me to also say, make sure your makeup artists know what they're doing and make sure they're professionals. And everyone I have in here, it took me a long time to find the people I have in here. It's a perfect balance of them knowing what they're doing and not having an ego.
Okay. So when you're speaking of makeup artists, so do you working with your own team, or you actually allow people to do makeup on their own, or like working with their makeup artist? Because I have some bad experiences where someone was like, well, I have my makeup artist, and then
I think we've all had that experience.
Yeah, and then the person is coming to the shoot and you're just like, okay, this is just bad, right?
Yeah. I mean, I used to, I think, be a lot more adamant and persistent about, you really should have makeup. At the end of the day, you can only give out the advice, and if they're coming to you, they should take the advice. Yeah. And if they don't, and they decide to go another way, you can't be 100% responsible for their results, and they know that. I would say most of my clients use my makeup artists.
Okay.
The ones who don't either are trying to maybe do makeup on the side, or they have someone they've worked with on set before who they really like. If someone's using another artist, I will sometimes ask for that artist's portfolio or their website or their Instagram or something, so I can just make sure it's a professional that they're working with. We're on a top level as far as all that is concerned. So it's even more essential here because they're these kids are going out for Fox Studios and big major networks, and it has to be like best of the best of the best.
Yeah.
So all of my makeup artists that are here, they've been on film sets, they've been on TV sets, they've done celebrity red carpets, they've done everything. So it's making sure that your artists also, it's our responsibility as photographers to have artists in here who can handle anything.
Yes.
Because you can tell your clients to be as prepared as possible, but it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah, well, that's true. So speaking of makeup, I just want to take this to the next step and talk a little bit about retouching. Because that's something which nowadays, and I found, especially speaking to so many different photographers, like, I don't want to say it's a controversial topic, but I'm sure you've heard that all the time. There's huge debate, how much is enough, and, like how much we should retouch the images. And also when it comes to retouching headshots and, those images goes to, the casting calls and stuff like that. So we also, there has to be some kind of balance, and then we also have to draw the line. So can you tell me a little bit about your retouching process and how important retouching is for you? Sure.
I am a huge advocate for getting it as close as possible in camera. I don't the whole fix it in post thing that's not how I do it. Good lighting, good makeup, catching things as you're shooting them. Everything in my studio, we shoot tethered. Okay. So I'm seeing the images as they're coming up. Looking at the back of the camera is not going to show you what it's going to look like. No. So it's catching everything. It's making sure your makeup artists are catching everything. The most common things to retouch are things that you can't fix in camera. A blemish. I mean, a makeup can only cover it so much, but if it's raised above the skin, it's going to catch some shadow. Some women want their under eyes touched up a little bit if they happen to maybe not get the best night of sleep or have a little one running around or whatever that case is. And I mean, I think we all would prefer a little touch up here and there. Flyaways are a big one because I do use backlighting and hair lighting, and kind of a glow behind it definitely catches flyaways, especially on like hair like mine, like blonde, lighter hair. So there are some things that, you know, we can't fix every tiny detail because the shoot would be 8 hours long if we did that. But, you know, smoothing stuff out so that, you know, that's a quick fix, but you'd be comfortable with them using it without retouching. That's a big one for me, is if this client decided they're going to download the photo and they're going to just use it straight out of the gate, I have to be okay with that. So the quality has to be that good that even without a stitch of retouching, that it's okay.
Yeah. And I agree with you that there's, in my opinion, misconception when it comes to retouching, because there's some people think that retouching is, well, designed to fix stuff, and then the way we look at it, I think it's just to enhance certain things and just fix those little things which we couldn't kind of process, you know, in the photo shoot, right? So I completely agree with you. So let's switch the gear, and I would like to talk a little bit about the last 10 years of headshot industry. Like we've noticed, and you being so long in this industry, you've seen a lot of changes, and then you've seen this industry evolve big time. We also see that over the last, I found, few years when it comes to the digital photography, this whole thing also kind of took completely different path. So what was the biggest changes you have seen over the last, let's focus on the last decade, you know, like, well, maybe not decade, but let's like, you know, the last 10 years of shooting. What was the biggest changes you have noticed when it comes to the headshot photography industry?
I think from our side of the camera, noticing the fall off of print.
Okay.
And my printing companies would probably hate for me to say that, but actors just are not printing 8x10s anymore. More so in New York, you know, theater auditions, they definitely will hand it over more, but in LA, everything is submitted digitally in a thumbnail this big.
Oh, wow.
So as photographers, we, especially about 5 years ago, there's another huge shift where we had to factor, how is this photo going to look as an 8x10? Always. But how is it going to look as a thumbnail? You know, is it popping enough? You know, are we shooting black hair on a black background? That not a great idea, because the casting directors are looking, and actually here, this kind of shows a little bit what it looks like, but that, right? So that's your computer screen. Okay. That's what the casting directors are seeing, and they're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and literally every casting director's process is different, but you know, 1, 3, or 5, yes, maybe, or no, and it's that quick. Yes. So the thumbnail factor, we call it, it really has to pop between, you know, wardrobe, eyes, everything. I'm a big advocate for the client popping and not the background. You know, I think they should stand out more than the background should. It shouldn't catch your eye before you look at them or their face. That's been a huge shift for sure. You know, another shift my makeup artists and I talk about is how Instagram and social media has affected headshots. And, you know, this idea of a selfie that, you know, years ago, it was a camera that you would turn around and hope for the best. But now people are looking at their face in a reverse, you know, copy of their face in their camera. And it can kind of distort things. And they're putting themselves in front of their window and putting 8 filters on it and face tuning and all that other stuff that I think for my younger actors that are in their, you know, early 20s, they almost have a different perception of what they actually look like. You know, and it's not meant to sound mean in any way, but we have to take into consideration that they've never had a professional photograph of themselves that actually shows their face. You know, that isn't like blown out and filtered and all of that stuff. So when you're seeing that over and over and over again, and people they kind of idolize or look at on social media or YouTube or Instagram, you know, that it's like how we used to look at celebrities in the magazines, that like there's work that's done to it to make it look like that. And so I think that's been another big shift is you get people that'll come in and I'll say, stand straight on, and they'll kind of go like that. That's their straight on because they're so used to this,
the selfie,
you know, with the selfie. So it's been really interesting, and it's not a bad thing. It's just adjusting. It's adjusting to the change and the change in the digital world, the change in photography, all of that.
Yeah.
So those have been like the two biggest shifts, I think, as far as what I see on a daily basis.
Perfect. So what's the future? What do you see this industry is going? Because it seems like it's changing every year. I've noticed that even the last couple of years, even when it comes, and this is, I don't want to touch this, but maybe this is the good moment. I don't really like to talk much about the equipment because we know that it's only the tool. And I deeply believe that the cameras got so good nowadays that, you can pull off good images out of any cameras, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about the gear. Do you see any big changes, when it comes to, you were shooting 10 years ago and now what you're shooting right now? If you could just give me let's focus on the gear a little bit and talk a little bit about maybe your gear and what you're using, just so people are not going to hate me that I didn't ask that question.
No, gear is important for sure.
Okay.
It's we all love it. We all geek out over it. I shoot Nikon.
Okay.
I am shooting currently with the 8100.
Okay.
I think 810. I think we used to see a lot more natural light in headshots, and I love it, and I shot with it for a long, long time, and it's beautiful. I think what's really cool about where it could be going is everyone has kind of stepped up their game. It used to be adequate to just go under a bridge and shoot, with a really pretty light coming in, and I mean, people still do it, and it's great, and I learned that way too, or on your rooftop with the door, someone's in the hallway and you get the door light, and it's beautiful stuff. But I think we've all elevated it now to the next level of every factor being important and coming up with backgrounds and coming up, I'm using everything from a large beauty dish to window light to some hair lighting to putting V-flats here to cut out the cheekbones. I think just it's layer upon layer upon layer gotten more extensive. And I think the gear is important, but you also need to be able to take your iPhone and take an amazing photo. Someone should be able to hand you whatever their camera is, and you should be able to create something incredible out of it. So the gear is important. I do think tethering is super beneficial if you're in a studio setting or a place that you can. The back of the camera is great, but we know it's not 100% accurate. So I used to be really against it because I liked the action of it and all that stuff. But now I'm like, no, I got to see everything. I think I think the industry is going to a really cool place, and it's got almost an editorial celebrity portrait feel. It's kind of going in that direction a little because the cost of things have gone down so much in the last 10 years. I mean, you see in LA, literally anybody picks up a camera and calls themselves a photographer because it's affordable. To at least start that way. But I think people get wrapped up in the tech side of it and the equipment side of it. And they feel the need to have all the fancy things and the bells and whistles. But I always, for me, I wanted to earn my equipment. So I wouldn't get the next model camera or the fancier lights or the pro photos until I really earned it and really felt that my work would be even better with it. Once I knew I was getting an awesome image, but God, I just want a little bit better, then I would upgrade the lens or the camera or whatever the gear at the time was. Yeah.
And also what is interesting, and, I hope those, big corporations which produce equipment not going to listen to this because they're going to hate me. But don't you think a little bit that, we have this kind of mentality that we depend way too much on the equipment, and those big companies, they kind of put this in our mind that, well, if you get this camera, this is what you're going to be able to do, which we know it's not true, right? And most of the time they're exaggerating some of those things that and this is also my experience just even dealing with other photographers that whenever I post image, the most requested questions are about gear, like, oh, what lens did you use, or what lighting did you use, or what camera do you have? But nobody's asking in my opinion, those important questions, like, how did you pose the person? Like, why did you choose that lighting over that other lighting? Why did you, what's your engaging process to get that face expressions, right?
Yes,
so
that's much more important.
So that's kind of the message what I want to send, and that's why I'm doing those interviews, because this is the kind of message which comes across every photographer who actually reached a really high level, that again, equipment is only the gear, and this is just a tool, but there's way more to it to create a good image.
Oh, there's a lot more to it. Yeah. The gear is fun. I mean, of course, and it's got to be there, but you can have all the gear in the world, and if you don't know how to talk to someone when you're photographing them, you better just put down the camera and stop there.
Yeah,
because you're not going to get the images you want or need, or posing especially. I mean, the different body types, the different angles, and I mean, actors come in with a whole bag full of things they want to say. I don't like my nose on this side. This side's bigger than this side. You need to be able to handle it all. And at the end of the day, it's like, yes, that's what you look like, and you look gorgeous, and that's your face, and you're going to walk in and look like that. It's perfect the way it is. But if they want something, your job is to make it work, regardless. End of the day, your job is to make it work.
For sure. So there's the next thing what I would like to talk. I'm going to dive into your photos. I went through your website and I picked some of your images, which I really like. But before we do that, I have one more question, which is actually on my mind right now, because when I following your work, when I watch your images, I can see that the clients and the subject you're working with, they really engage with the camera. So this is something what I would like to ask you, like, what is the process of engaging with people? Because this is something, in my opinion, shooting headshots, when you're working one-on-one with the person, this is one of the key things, every headshot photographer have to learn how to engage with people and how to get them comfortable at the front of the camera. So can you tell me a little bit, maybe secrets or some tips or something, how you approach this whole thing?
Yeah. There's no secrets. I certainly nothing to hide with the way I shoot or do things in the studio. For me, when I try to engage, and even in my correspondence with the client before they even come in for the shoot, the same way I like in my photographs, I like to try and be warm and friendly and approachable, yet professional and knowledgeable. There's a huge trust factor. Every now and then I'll jump behind the camera and remember what it's like to be a subject and really get there and go, okay, well, this is weird. And I see where if I tilt my head this way and push it out, that does feel weird. You have to kind of put yourself in their shoes a lot. And just because I shoot actors, everyone thinks, oh, well, you shoot actors. They're so used to being on camera. They're used to playing characters. So they come in and they're pretty nervous. They're not used to just being themselves. They're used to being handed a script, transforming into somebody else and being that person. So they're just as nervous as, the business guy in Wisconsin who's getting his LinkedIn profile picture taken. It's the same principles. So I think just talking to them like a human being, it's not a first date. It's asking them where they're from, asking them, for me, I ask everybody, what are you watching these days? What TV shows are you loving? We do the business talk. We do, what do you need out of the shoot? Aside from getting gorgeous photos, what are your goals with this shoot? What are you hoping to get out of it? Making sure your client feels that they have a voice is a major thing. Because we've heard a million stories in here. When they sit down in the makeup chair, they're like, well, my last headshot session, it's like the hairdresser. Everyone loves to kind of talk and gossip and vent. So you hear it all. I've definitely heard like crazy stories where I cannot believe a photographer charged them money and then treated them like this. Or, it just blows my mind. So these people are, number one, paying you, and hopefully. And number two, it's a very vulnerable spot that they're standing there and trusting that you're going to take a photo that they feel great about. I think for me, I definitely try and look at each client and pick out what I think is gorgeous about them and compliment them on it and reassure them that they're doing great, because it's hard, especially if there's a makeup artist or anybody else watching. It's an audience watching you pose and you can't necessarily see it. I'm not showing them each shot as they're shooting them, but maybe when they're maybe when they're changing or something, they can peek around and go, oh my God, yeah, that's so amazing. And they see it. If people are kind of not getting something or having a hard time warming up, and I show them a position that works, I'll bring them around and I'll show them on the computer, this is you not doing this position, this is you doing it, see how much better that looks. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, I'm a huge visual person, so I like to see things visually. Just getting to know them, telling them how great they are, and really finding what makes them great. You're not just stroking their ego. You're actually finding what makes them great, and then you're going to photograph that thing that makes them great.
Perfect. Okay, so let's dive into your shots. I'm going to just show you. I picked 6 images.
Okay.
Which are my favorites, and I just love them, to bits and pieces. So if you could just tell me a little bit of maybe story behind this shoot, maybe if you want to add a little bit about this person, sure. Maybe a little bit. I also tried to pick images with different face expressions, and then they really striking. So this is the first image I want to show you.
Yes.
So what's the story behind that image?
She's amazing. I mean, there's no crazy story. She's a lovely, lovely actress. Came in, had a similar story that you hear a lot, where she's had photos in the past. They didn't quite do, she's clearly stunning. They didn't quite do her justice. She has these beautiful, like, gray blue eyes, which should take nothing to make those pop. And her old shots were just kind of meh. So she came in, and that one was shot with natural light.
Okay.
She's got really gorgeous, glowy skin. And my wonderful makeup artist, Stephen Bowman, I remember, was on this shoot, and really kind of brought out a lot of her golden tones, which the natural light, loves that. And then, just letting her just be her. The cool part about someone like this actress and a lot of my actors is sometimes just letting them be, just letting them sit. After all the posing and all the things you're giving them, having them just take a breath and look away and then look at the camera, and you catch moments like that. I don't do a lot of directing. I don't tell them to go to remember this time when you did this. So there's no acting that I do. It's very, very technical. So, if I want someone to be a little sneaky or smoldering, it's having them do a little smirk or a little squint in the eyes, or because it's not script and it's not video. So if I'm having someone pull an emotion of, think of this person. Well, I don't know them. I don't know what that person in their life. I don't know what their relationship with that person is either, or what's going to come out of their face. Yeah. Which you hear a lot of that, people directing them to sense memory, and you don't know what their acting method is. You don't know. All of that is just too deep. So do you directing people throughout the shoot? Or are you just having conversation and you just shooting? If an actor can shut me up while I'm shooting, then they're really good. Oh, okay. Because I think awkward silence is horrible in a headshot session. I think constantly giving them little tiny tweaks. You see, if you're taking a shot of someone straight on and then they just do this, it can change the whole shot. Oh, yeah. So it's a lot of small direction within whatever the body position is, then switching up their body position and then making small changes within that. So that's more of the way I direct. We could talk 8 hours about direction for sure. It's a big topic, and there's a lot of tricks and there's a lot of tactics, and you have to use different tactics for each person with different people. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's jump into the next one. That's Kirsten Clever. She was a return client of mine. That was the second time I photographed her. She is another stunning beauty of Hollywood, who, she can really do the quirky thing, which we shot some photos like that, where it was like a pop of lip and that kind of stuff. But she is like stunning leading lady of Hollywood, and a wonderful human being. And again, just the straight on, there's a little wind in the hair to kind of lift the bangs off of her face, but letting her eyes do the talking. Yes. She's really, really fun. It's funny that her expression is so serious in that shot, because we were giggling for most of that shoot and just having some fun. I also really like the colors, like the hair, and the wardrobe was picked for this shoot. Was just works perfectly. It's sometimes you wouldn't think to put either blush or copper orange tones on a redhead, but it can really, really work. I mean, red hair is just like a blessing for photographs. You can do so much in so many backgrounds, and just it speaks for itself. It's really fun.
And now apparently after the royal wedding, I don't know if you've heard about it, it's a trend for the redheads.
Is it?
It's crazy, yeah. I've read this somewhere. I was like, okay, that's kind of weird, but it was kind of interesting. Okay, so next image, which is like absolutely stunning. If you could just tell me a little bit about this one. I love the lighting on this. The hair light.
My signature light. That's the light. The blurred out with a bit of flare is kind of the light that got me on the map as far as headshots are concerned. And again, it was years ago. We still do it.
Okay.
But now I see a lot of people doing it. She was like fresh off the boat here, man. She had just moved to Los Angeles.
Okay.
No representation, no anything yet, which I was like, oh God, get ready, because everyone's going to be knocking down your door when you get these shots, because she's stunning. Mm-hmm. She's got like a young Halle Berry vibe. Mm-hmm. Again, she's one of those actresses that is so comfortable in her body, still nervous, but even them standing there, it's like, it's a stunning shot. You can still make adjustments to make it even better, even if they're like amazing on camera. And she's one of those ones that did not have a bad frame. I mean, every single shot.
Well, I have once in a while those clients where every angle they take, it's a keeper. Yeah. Well,
and I think as photographers, you can get that more when you slow it down a bit.
Yes.
With natural light, it's so easy to just bang, 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 but slowing it down, getting the shot, when it was filmed, we had to slow down. We had to slow down, we had to frame it, and we had to get it. With digital, it's just like trigger finger and everyone goes crazy. So slowing it down, getting that shot, then moving the position slightly, then clicking.
Yes.
So quick to fire away.
And also speaking of that, this is something which was my experience. And then, I know there's always big discussion when it comes to the equipment. Well, this camera can take 16 frames a second. But when you're shooting portraits or headshots, I think it's better to have camera which kind of can slows you down, because then you start thinking, you started really focusing on the person, and then, adjusting stuff. Right. So this is really good tip that, people should slow down their work.
Slow it down. Take a breath.
Yeah.
I shoot in a session half of what I used to shoot.
Yes.
I mean, I really had to slip, because, then you're going and editing afterwards and going through like, oh my God, this is endless.
Yeah. And what, my background is wedding photography. That's how I started. So for me, it was also, I would say, a couple of years of completely changing my way of shooting, because weddings is just keep, finger on the button and just keep.
Down to that. That is in the moment.
So that was, something what I have to really adjust to it. Okay, so let's go to the next one. And the one thing which really struck me on this image is their smile. So if we could talk a little bit about this image.
Yeah, that's Kat. She's amazing. She's another one that headshots before just weren't doing her justice. For me, getting people to, and this is giving away big tips, getting people to that big natural smile is having them start with a smirk. Mm-hmm. If they start with a smirk, like they have a little secret, and then you tell them to let that secret grow, and then it's like they're trying not to laugh, that will bring them to a laugh. Reassuring an actor that they can actually be vocal and laugh and let a breath out is gold. Mm-hmm. Because, the first thing people are going to do is go from 0 to 100. Yes. And it just looks crazy.
And it's a fake smile.
But going naturally and building up to it, and then when that breath comes out, that's when you get that smile. Yes. And there's always debate over, do we like an open mouth smile or not? Should they be? And I'm like, what? Go with the energy behind it.
Yes.
If someone has an open mouth smile and they're truly, genuinely glowing and laughing, and wow, how could you not want to look at that?
Yes. So that leads us to the next image, if we can jump in, because that was another really cool shot.
Oh, yeah.
And then, this is exactly what you said a couple minutes ago about a smile. That, it's a natural smile, and it looks real. Like, it doesn't look fake.
Yeah, no, it's not.
And it's just contagious a little bit too.
Yeah, it's exactly what I say all the time. Is you have a contagious smile. He's fantastic. He's an actor, a brilliant actor, and he also teaches at an amazing acting school here in Los Angeles. And he's one of those people. Yeah, I mean, he's fantastic on camera too, and he has one of those smiles that everyone in the room will smile and light up with him. But same thing. It's either using that tactic of getting them to the smile naturally, or joking around and having that finger ready to snap it when he does. You know, you can always sense the clients that are okay with you busting their balls a little bit, and the ones that are a little more reserved. And so again, that's where using different tactics comes in. But we joke around a lot while we're shooting, and we have fun. And especially when it's a female makeup artist of mine and me, and we have a male client, and tough crowd.
Yes, absolutely.
We kind of mess with them that the ladies are in charge that day.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's fun, and it's this fun kind of flirty, awesome smile that comes out.
Well, and we're jumping to the next image, which is also flirty, and I think we're just flowing through this.
Flirty's awesome in a headshot. Yeah, that's Ty Trumbo, amazing actor as well. Yeah, he's got an incredible face. He's one of those people who does not have a bad angle. Not that anyone has a bad angle, but there's some that look different depending on which way they're turning. He's amazing, and that side angle, when it's done right, can be really, really striking. A little squint in the eye. I'm never going to direct someone to actually flirt. I'm never going to direct someone to think of their girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever. I think that's just insane. The way you get that on camera, have them pick a spot in it, and then they can give a little squint, and then a little breath of a smirk can come out. And sometimes this stuff, when you're giving them this type of direction, it's kind of coming out naturally.
Yes.
And especially if on our side of the camera, we're having fun. That just makes them it's almost like they're holding in a smile the whole time. And that's awesome to watch, and it's awesome to shoot. I love a straight on shot, but I also love an angle if it's done right, because they can't get too far over, for what I do and for what my actors need. They do need to see a little bit of the body and the physique and see what they look like for casting purposes. But, when it's angled right and you can get that jaw on the guys too, it's just gorgeous.
Well, that image is really striking. You just want to know this person. You're just okay. He's talking, he's talking to you without talking, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, so I have a couple more questions to you. So the next one, what would be the one advice you would like to give to someone who is starting off being a headshot or portrait photographer? Is there anything you specific would like to address when someone is just starting this journey?
Yeah, we touched a little bit upon it when we were talking gear.
Okay.
I think not getting wrapped up in the gear right away is good advice. I think watching professionals. It doesn't mean you have to assist. Everyone is always like, go assist, and I think that's great, but I never did. And I think taking workshops, classes, I'm self-taught, so to speak, but I certainly took some classes and some workshops and that kind of stuff. I didn't go to a 4-year university for photography or art school. I think it's a balance of just shooting, shoot. You can't, photography is not something that you learn by textbook or by, writing things down or, taking apart the camera. You have to actually pick it up and shoot. Because I've had assistants in the past where they've watched me all day long, and then when they get up and hold it, they're all like, and it's just a different ballgame when you're holding that camera and you have a live person in front of you. Grab every friend, relative, whoever, get them in front of your camera, and fail miserably.
Yes.
It's okay. I have old shots of mine that I'm like, oh God, I can't believe I thought that was good.
But that's another thing what I found, the failure is the road to success. And I think we missing this big time. And I also found we both have 3-year-old kids, right? And, we always want to make sure they do things right and, they don't fail, but sometimes we have to let them fail and let them
scratch their knee a bit.
Yes, exactly. Make mistakes because that's the only way to learn. And especially I found in photography, it's all about failing and failing and failing till you understand
and learning the rules.
Yes.
Learning the rules so that you can then go and break them and mess them up a little bit.
Yes.
You know, you have to know the foundation, and you can't put your digital camera on auto and then try directing someone. It's not. It's both. It is 50-50. As much as we say gear isn't important, you also have to know how to shoot manually. Mm-hmm. So don't charge money until you can shoot manually and make sure you're not going to screw up, and make sure you're going to actually get the person what they need. I shot for free for years and years and years until I knew what I was doing.
Yes. Well, people want a success overnight, right? And that's unfortunately it's not going to happen. Okay, so let's go to the last questions. Last question. So what kind of impact you would like to make on headshot photography?
Oh, that's a lovely question. I think as much as I love for photographers to learn cool things from me, hopefully, and we're going to be doing a little bit of that down the line. But I think it's about my subjects. Mm-hmm. I think having anyone who shot with me feel beautiful and feel like they had an experience that was unique and feel like they have images that truly captured who they are. That's kind of the most important. Like, my subject always comes first. Mm-hmm. I think it kind of goes back to that of all the people that I photograph, whether it's the actor that just moved here and started out or the celebrity. I hope that everyone has a meaningful, genuine, awesome experience in even discovering a little bit about themselves while I photograph them too, because I'm learning from them and they're learning from me, and that's an awesome thing. Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Stephanie, thank you so much for this interview. I had so much fun and I've learned so much. I'm going to probably go for this interview many, many times because
you're so sweet.
There's so many hidden informations where people have to kind of catch on. But that was a real pleasure chatting with you, and thank you for your time. And please also tell me where people can find you online. You have a website, you're on social media. I will link everything anyways, but if you could...
Okay. My website, StephGirardHeadshots.com. Okay. I also have a separate website for my editorial fashion portrait stuff. Okay. And then my Instagram handle, they can see, I post a lot more on that just from day to day, week to week of what's going on in our studio. And that's at Steph Girard Headshots. And then there is another Instagram, Steph Girard Photo, which is a little more just my personal life and my work outside of headshots.
Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much again. I hope you can do this interview again in near future. I'm sure there's a lot of things to come. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Cheers.